Welcome y'all to Robin on the Farm. Today I'm in a little corner of my food storage room and I wanted to let you in on a little sourdough hack. This is some butter powder. And when you use butter powder in your sourdough breads, it's nice and soft and has a light buttery flavor. It's so good. So this is a fantastic inclusion for your sourdough breads that you might not know about. So if you haven't tried this one yet, give this one a try. I think you're gonna like it. I'm gonna show you exactly how to make it. The super simple sourdough recipe that you can make same day. None of those stretch and folds or anything hard like that. It's a really easy beginner recipe, and it's made even better with this butter powder. So let's just get started. This is the Augustin Farms butter powder. It has a nice light buttery smell and taste, just like real butter. I keep these large cans in my food storage, but you can also get them in smaller containers too. I'll share the recipe in both grams and cups and spoons today, and I'll include both on the printable recipe. First, you're going to need some sourdough starter. This is my classic sourdough starter Hester. If you need a sourdough starter and you want to save yourself some time, effort, and maybe even some tears, I have my sourdough starters freeze-dried and on my website. For this recipe, we want 175 grams of sourdough starter, which is 3/4 of a cup. Now for this recipe, it's really easy because you can use active sourdough starter or you can even use unfed hungry sourdough discard. It's going to work great in this recipe. And that's why it's so great for beginners. You don't have to worry about timing your feedings or anything like that. After you have your sourdough starter in your bowl, be sure to zero out your scale. Now it's time for some water. You're going to want to use some room temperature water. Non-chlorinated is best for sourdough breads, but mine is straight from the tap, and it's going to work just fine. We want 400 grams of water, which is about 1 3/4 cups. Just measure that right on into your bowl. Now I'm going to give these two ingredients a good mix with my spurtle. This will make it easier to incorporate the dry ingredients next. I do love measuring in grams for my sourdough, but it's so easy for me to forget to zero out my scale in between ingredients. So don't forget that important step. All right, now it's time for our butter powder. This is such an awesome sourdough inclusion because it's going to give us nice, soft sourdough bread that also has that wonderful butter taste. And it's so easy to use and incorporate into your sourdough breads. You want 15 grams or 2 tablespoons of the butter powder. Now it's time to add the flour. We want 630 grams or 5 1/4 cups of flour. For this sourdough recipe, you can use bread flour or all-purpose flour. I'm using bread flour today and I do prefer it, but all-purpose will work just fine too in this sourdough bread. And our very last ingredient already is some salt. This is my favorite salt. This is the Redmond's Real Salt. It's an ancient fine sea salt from North America, but you can use any salt that you want. I'm going to add 15 grams of salt. This salt is thought to be a little bit sweet instead of bitter like some other salts can be. So it's a really great flavor enhancer, and I just really like it in my baking. But 15 grams of salt right on into your bowl. Now it's time to give all of these ingredients a good mix. I like using a Danish dough whisk for this. It's great for thick doughs like sourdough. I'm going to spend about 2 minutes giving this a really good mix with this whisk. Then I like to use my hands to really feel the dough and make sure there isn't any dry flour left. You also have the option of using a stand mixer instead of mixing this by hand. You'll just want to use the stand mixer just for a minute or two. Just make sure it all gets incorporated together really well. You don't need to knead it or anything like that. Now once it's come together into a nice shaggy ball of dough, it's time to cover it up so that it doesn't dry out and let it sit on the countertop for the bulk ferment. This bulk ferment can take anywhere from 3 to 12 hours. Just make it work for your day. You're looking for it to become puffy and expanded. My kitchen is about 72 degrees and it usually takes about 5 hours. I could let it go longer and it would get bigger and more expanded, and that would be fine too. But if you let it over ferment, it's going to get too hard to work with and it's going to be just a blob that doesn't hold any shape. So this is exactly what you want yours to look like. Now it's time for the shaping step. At first, my dough is very stretchy and pliable, and then it quickly becomes tight. This develops the gluten so that the bread will have structure and a really good texture. So you just want to work around your bowl, lifting up and stretching and pulling it over to the other side until you feel your dough change, and then you'll know that it's done enough. After this shaping step, go ahead and recover it with your saran wrap. We're going to let it sit on the countertop for another hour. Once that hour is passed, you have the option to bake straight away or pop it in your fridge until you're ready to bake it. I do it both ways. Now it's time to score and bake our sourdough bread. I like to put my dough on a bread sling. Using a bread sling makes it a little bit easier and much safer to get your sourdough bread in and out of your Dutch oven. Now I'm going to use this bread lawn and I'm going to score my sourdough. Scoring is a really important thing to do when you're making sourdough bread because it gives your bread an expansion point for steam to escape as it bakes and rises in the oven. You can do a really intricate and decorative score, or you can just slash it down the middle and call it good. Either way works great. If you want your score to stand out a little bit better, you can sprinkle your dough with a little bit of rice flour and then score it, and that really will help your score to stand out. But it's just an extra step. A great trick is to use a trivet in the bottom of your Dutch oven. This will help keep your bread elevated a little bit and keep it from getting a little bit too crunchy or too burned while it's baking. Now I'm going to use my bread sling and just lift it into my Dutch oven. I did not preheat my Dutch oven. This is a cold Dutch oven. Now I'm going to put the lid on and I'm going to put it into a cold, non-preheated oven and set the temperature to 450 degrees. Then I'm going to let it bake for 1 hour. After an hour, I'm going to take the lid off, reduce the oven temperature to 425 degrees, and let it finish baking and browning for about 10 to 15 minutes. When it's the color you want, go ahead and get it out of the oven. Look at this gorgeous loaf of sourdough bread. Go ahead and remove it from the Dutch oven. Makes it really easy with the bread sling. And then put it on a wire rack to cool. To be sure that your sourdough bread is baked all the way through, you can do the knock test when you tap on the bottom of your loaf and it should sound hollow, or you can use an instant read thermometer. You want your sourdough bread to be about 200 to 205 degrees, and you want to take the temperature right after you get it out of your Dutch oven, or it's going to start to cool pretty quickly. Ideally, let your sourdough bread cool for about 4 to 5 hours to ensure it's finished baking all the way through and that the steam and the moisture has left your bread so that it's not gummy and it'll be easier to slice that way too. I like to keep my sourdough bread in beeswax bread bags. I like the beeswax bread bags because they keep my sourdough fresh and the crust just the right texture without it becoming rubbery like when I use a plastic bag for my sourdough. So now that my sourdough bread is all cooled off, I am ready to slice into it and check out the inside. I'm using my bread bow knife. It's really great for not squishing your bread as you're cutting it. And this sourdough bread is nice and soft. It slices really easily. Look at that crumb, look at that texture. It's soft, it's pliable, it has a great buttery smell to it, and it's easy to rip, it's easy to bite, it's easy to chew, and it has a fantastic buttery taste. I love making sourdough bread with butter powder. Give this sourdough hack a try. I think you're really gonna like it. If you're interested in trying a beeswax bread bag for your sourdough bread, these are our handmade beeswax bread bags that my daughters and I make together. They're going to be on my website along with a printable recipe for the sourdough bread made with butter powder. It's robinonthefarm.com. Thanks so much for being here with me on Robin on the Farm. I'll see you next time.
Robin's in the kitchen, dough beneath her hands, wheat from the fields and eggs from her land. Sunlight through the window, a warm golden glow. She's working hard to make that dough. With flour on her apron, loving each need. Ground wheat fresh, sowing her seed. The smell of fresh